Today's video has been sponsored by the award-winning Star Trek Fleet Command, a 4X MMO strategy game that you can play for free on iOS, Android and PC. Click the link in the description below to check out their recently launched Star Trek Lower Decks expansion, which includes the plucky USS Cerritos in all its glory. This first-of-its-kind ship buffs the others in its fleet, increasing damage, defenses and all that cool stuff, creating a force multiplier and shaking up player strategies. Also included are 3 new Lower Decks officers, Ensigns Brad Boimler and Beckett Mariner, as well as the helpful hologram Badgie. These are the first characters to have the new Below Decks abilities, letting you assign a crew to assist the officers on the bridge, expanding the options for customizing the way your ships play. All these new features supplement the huge amount of content already in the game, from story-driven missions to your very own upgradable space station, with all your favourite ships and characters from across the franchise. So check out Star Trek Fleet Command for free on iOS, Android and PC through the link in the description below.
Introduced in the late 23rd century and quickly becoming a staple of Starfleet that would endure for just over 100 years, the Oberth-class light science vessel is a compact scout and survey craft designed for short-range exploratory assignments, orbital survey duties, and data gathering for stellar cartography records. The ship was produced in large numbers and deployed very regularly for the various exploration opportunities and assignments that did not merit the attention of a larger Federation starship. At a length of 120 meters and a width of 63.2 meters, the Oberth class presents an extremely distinctive and unusual space frame, with a small saucer section making up the forward quarter of the primary hull, which is separated by a large negative space from the narrow secondary hull, which itself contains the ship's warp core, shuttle pod bay and various sensor suites. Egress between the two hulls is achieved either through the small number of decks and compartments contained within the ship's pylons, or by site-to-site transport. The Oberth carries a crew of 100 and is generally provisioned for short to mid-range deployments, rarely operating at extreme distances from Federation infrastructure. Being a light-duty scout and survey platform, the Oberth class is armed with only the most basic defensive armaments, with 4 Type 4 phaser arrays and only a single photon torpedo launcher comprising its entire protective arsenal. These weapons are generally intended only to provide cover for a retreat, as the Oberth is not designed for any kind of armed conflict, but rather to rapidly withdraw whenever harassed or otherwise targeted. The irregular space frame of the Oberth also severely weakens its resilience to weapons fire, and the ship's shields are of only moderate strength, cumulatively resulting in an extremely fragile vessel. As the Oberth class continued its career into the 24th century, its mission profile was increasingly expanded as Starfleet began to take advantage of the extreme modularity and adaptability of its internal structure. Numerous Oberth-class vessels were employed by the Starfleet Corps of Engineers as testbeds for experimental starship systems, including notably the USS Pegasus, which served as a platform for the illegal development of a phasing cloaking device in violation of the Treaty of Algeron. In the later decades of the Oberth's career, after the vessel had been largely withdrawn from exploratory duties, ships of the class began to see regular use as passenger transport craft, couriers and logistical support vessels, with notable assignments being the deployment of the first wave of Starfleet personnel to Deep Space Nine after its appropriation from the Cardassian Union in 2369, and the recovery of the crew of the USS Enterprise D after the Federation flagship's destruction in the Battle of Viridian 3 and subsequent crash landing on the planet's surface. Ultimately, the Oberth class was replaced in its intended role by the cutting-edge Nova-class science vessel, which retained the same short-range and adaptable design, but with the advantages of contemporary shipbuilding and technologies. Some Oberth-class vessels remained in service in rear echelon roles, as training ships or haulers, and one vessel of the class even found itself directly engaging a Borg cube at the Battle of Sector 001 in 2373. By the time the vessel had been largely retired in the 2380s, the Oberth class had served a long and storied career with the Federation Starfleet, holding pride of place as one of the fleet's most ubiquitous and reliable starship designs, a tradition that seems set to be carried forward for many decades more by its high-tech Nova-class successors.